Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the Williamson County Board of Commissioners meeting. It's Thursday, May 22nd, 2025. It's 1:03 in the afternoon. Roll call, please.
Tim Atkinson.
Present.
Jim Marlowe.
Present.
Jim Razor.
Present.
I tell you what, guys, we have a lot to discuss today, so let me get on down into old business. And I'd like to take care of animal control first. Somebody remember first? Let's start there. Hey, Martin. Well, thank you. We had some interesting numbers come through in the last bit.
I provided a letter, kind of a synopsis recommendation, calculation of the bids for you all. Included with that letter was the proposed schedule of subcontractors from the parent low bidder, Baker McGee Construction, with a copy of their CDB pre-qualification. Meet those requirements to be a acceptable bidder. I sent the next day a little spreadsheet. I don't know if everybody got a copy of that or not. Kind of summarized where the bids came in with the three alternate bids. Remember, we have three alternate bids for fencing, the epoxy flooring, and for the video surveillance system. Kind of showed what the bids would be as we took those in order. Baker McGee would still be the low bidder, no matter which alternate bid this is. So, had conversations with Andrew. Andrew's here as well from Baker about the bids. He had a chance to review. We went through the scope. Felt pretty confident. Told me that they were good with their numbers. Okay. We had 6 bids came in. Statistically, they were within 10% of each other.
Yeah, you had some, we had
pretty
excellent
tight.
contractors,
Yep.
and these bids were really tight.
And one bid, the low bid was in within 3% of our estimate. So, yeah, I felt like that's what the numbers are.
Yeah. Well, and I talked to somebody, and I said, well, we now know how much it costs to build an animal control facility, at least the one that we designed. Okay. All right, so gentlemen, what are your thoughts on this? Do we have any thoughts? We're over budget still. Well, we are over budget, and I think we've been talking about ways to find our money, see how we can get that out. Mark, what do you recommend for us in this situation?
We took the big items out with the alternates, the fencing, which I think fencing is still something that's going to be needed. Epoxy flooring. Andrew and I talked about a few things. If there's anything we could do to still try to trim it a little bit. He had a couple suggestions with the type of PVC liner panels we're putting in the animal housing area. We had specified it with the plywood backing. They have some experience with a product without the plywood, and maybe some savings by doing that. We're talking maybe $20,000.
Yeah,
We're not talking hundreds of thousands.
150.
There's no $100,000 items to take out of this unless we get into a design reduction or something.
Jim, do you have any thoughts on this?
This is more than I wanted it to be, but I don't think any bid was going to be what I wanted it to be. So it's not any kind of commentary. On the alternates, we need to include the fencing, and that's it. My opinion, the epoxy is not what it is. And if we want video surveillance, I think we can do that later, possibly go to a contractor that only does that. But I don't think it's important, those sorts of numbers. So there's a little over 100,000 to leave out where I started. I do think, considering we're halfway through the year, we can get this split across the budget year, potentially financing part of it, so then we can spread that out over an additional year. I still think we can make this work.
Okay.
where I start.
Mark, you visited a couple different animal controls with Kelly, constructed ones. Do you know approximately how those ran, those numbers? And I know it's, we're comparing apples to oranges here.
Yeah, I don't know about the Carlisle, Clinton County, that's what we toured with Kevin a couple of years ago. I don't know what the numbers came in. And the other one that I was involved with down in Anna was done with a lot of donated labor, so they didn't have a full true.
Okay. Size wise, are they comparable, just, you know, with square footage?
Square footage with pause is very, that's one in Anna. I think we're pretty close to that. But they didn't have as much office space as we did. We do in this, there's some spaces we have that they don't have down there. Clinton County, we're probably really close to the same office as what they have, but our kennel area is much bigger. So I'd have to find out what their numbers ran to be able to make that down.
You know, I did talk to you on the phone briefly. I know, like, thought ran through my head, I'd been approached before by labor unions on projects that maybe if we had any projects that they could use for training, and various labor unions, well, I did contact one on a different, totally separate, non-governmental project, and it worked out great. They got the training to do the work, and we organization what we needed on this. I thought maybe on the fencing, maybe we could do the same thing as part of somehow work out something that we could allow them to do the fencing, and, you know, us paying for the material, basically, and providing the labor for their members' training. We could work something out. I what do you call that? Value engineering or something, what the term, I guess, is called. You know, so the hard number is that we're still have to come up with my materials. But other than that, I guess the only real reduction I helped got these hard numbers would be just a redesign. Originally, we talked about doing away with SME. What it would be like. Did we price that out just for the mezzanine?
We did
I think
early on the
that was
project.
like about 300.
Some very budgetary numbers. On that,
Yeah.
I'd say, with the change, because we're using that also for our HVAC.
Right.
Unit locations.
Right.
Which would take a redesign of the.
Correct. We move those to pad mount units or something.
So, you know, once again, it's gonna be a board decision, so I really don't know. I want to see the facility built, and we talked about, you know, over 2 years, so, guys.
It sounds like Commissioner Razor, I'm speaking correctly, that you can see still.
I could, I would like to address the idea of redesign, because that's gone through my head. That I think that's the option. I won't say the only other option, but that's the option to this number is a redesign, but then I'm going to follow a pretty drastic change and say that at that point, if that's what we're trying to do, save construction costs, I would be looking at just building a larger version of what we have right now. And getting rid of what I would call a lot of the niceties that we've put in the office section. I think the animal section of this building is fine. I think if there's no savings, it's up on the other end. And if we're gonna go back to redesign, I'm back to basically a pole barn with a couple offices. That's where I would want to go if we're gonna go that drastic.
We have longevity of use on that. So I kind of took a little bit of a different tact. For the last several weeks, I've been asking folks about, you know, put your taxpayer hat on and think about if the county spends $2.4 million on an animal control facility, and granted, that was a very limited section of people I was talking to. And to a person, they all said, hey, you know, it costs me to build it. I understand it costs me to doing. And I think this facility, it's going to be very nice, but it's not outlandishly nice. It's not, there's nothing here that screams that we're wasting the taxpayer money on things that aren't actually needed. I would love, this is just me, once again, it's a board decision, but I'd love to go ahead and say, yes, we will build this facility. And this being our starting place to start having the contractor go back and let's make some real hard looks at value engineering. Let's let them come up and see if they can tell us, or we can save some money. I think that's, to me, that's probably where we go next. You guys are comfortable with that?
I was much more comfortable when we were talking about two. Not 2 point anything, but two.
Just two.
I'm at least a little more comfortable there. If there's a way to get closer to that, then yes, I would have more.
Yeah. And because we're gonna build something, I think.
Well, the need is there.
Well,
Yeah.
and we're gonna run out, we're gonna have to
Yeah.
build something.
So,
And I think in good faith effort from our way, we need to tell this contractor, yes, we're gonna do something. We've got to have value engineering on this. I think we know what the high point is now. So you guys willing to spend two for real close to 56 and 87, or just 56 for the chain link. And we know that's our high point. And let's value engineer this. Is that an option for us there, Mark?
Yes.
Okay, I do have a question on Mark, and I don't know if we ever talked about this. You did borings out there on the site.
We did.
Did we find any bad dirt, anything that gives cause?
Nothing of significance where we're at. Of course, we have the unit price if we do run into something, so we can proceed on using the unit cost. We're fairly shallow here, so.
You couldn't see, and I know I'm putting you on the spot, because you know what I'm gonna ask you. But we don't foresee $100,000 worth of bad dirt out there, do we? I mean,
In fact, we've already started some conversations with George about some potential, he might have some fill material that we could use. And I
Yeah.
mentioned that to Andrew, that there, you may have some fill material that we will run past the structural engineering, so we can help save some borrow costs.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, for value engineering, the two quick, easy, kind of low-hanging fruit items that come to mind are, like Mark said, using some of the fill that you guys already have. Because everything we're building on for that building, it's getting raised up about 5 foot, the grade. So there's potential there to use fill at the parking lot. I don't know if you want to use it under the building, if it's asphalt millings, but I'm not an engineer. That would be something that Mark could help you. Absolutely. I did want to, I mean, for your question on soils, that's a great question. And right now, I mean, we're coming into, the summer months and the dry period, and this job is primed to get going during that time frame. We can do some quick value engineering and that kind of stuff to help trim the budget down. But ultimately, to avoid what you're talking about, you'd want to start building.
we have to get started.
You
We gotta
do.
get like that before the end of August.
Yeah, because as soon as you get into October, I mean, you guys all know what it's like around here. It's just, you're gonna have every other day is, you're gonna get rain all the time. So we want to be coming out of the ground.
And I think that's something we have to consider, probably consider. So I'd like to, my recommendation would be that we approve that, knowing that we're gonna do value engineering, and I know that I'm about to make Brett's head explode on this, but that's what I think, and we're not gonna have a hard number until we get those things back, but I'd like us to at least,
We're gonna at least proceed, right?
right, to
We still have a
proceed.
point where we can say no.
That's a fun, what his agreement looks like with the contractor. So,
I mean, right now, there's no signed agreement. So you
no,
always-
but that's what I'm saying is.
You always have the right to terminate your contract. The language is in the base contract that Brett's already looked at. It's just what your cost will be at that point. Material on hand.
So let's spend a while on that.
Yeah.
Does that work for both of you?
It does, yeah.
Okay, so when will you, putting you on the spot? Because I really don't want to miss this building season that we're in. What kind of time frame? Because I want to get this formally approved and underway as quickly as possible.
I would say if Mark can identify where we can use any of these millings for fill, whether it's under the building or, in the parking lots, and then what kind of quantity we're looking at there. How much do we have that we can use? If I get answers to that, I can have something in a day. Back to you guys. Guys and gals.
I need to reach out to George, see how he's coming on the road for anyways.
Yeah.
We need that road in place for
We're gonna have
that.
it put in.
I forwarded the Ameren quote to you as well, you saw that.
Yeah, I brought that in. I wasn't here yesterday, so very nice in my hand, stepping forward.
Well, what you're asking, basically, I understand would be if you go ahead and get the contractor active for the base bid plus alternate number one, leaving in place options for value engineer that we can write changeovers to bring the price down as we propose we accept.
So that would be starting, that would actually be accepting that number and then starting that work.
That would allow them to start to work, and
Yeah.
Andrew and I could go immediately to work with the other subs and the other consultants to find ways to come back with some value engineering savings for you all.
Absolutely. Does that work? That gives you a commitment from this board?
It does. Yeah, I can go back to subs and ask. I mean, the two items that I was talking about getting back within a day, the two items I know of, I can dig in and see what other value engineering opportunities there are. And then just circle back around with some pricing.
That way you guys can also start trying to do some scheduling and get your folks in.
Absolutely.
Contractor has to. I can look it over.
Yeah.
It's basically a contract you've looked at, you just got to plug in all.
You want to discuss the Cameron thing?
Sure, so that, we finally got our Ameren design back. Remember, we were waiting on the electric service. We got this back from yesterday, 21st. Design as proposed has been approved by Ameren. They're going to set a pole and bring overhead service to that new pole, which will just be inside your property. It's going to go overhead and span on top of the wetlands. And then they'll run service in a contractor provided conduit from that pole to the transformer inside the transformer. Their cost is $24,588.36.
I don't guess we can negotiate that down, can we?
I can ask.
I've been in that position before, to talk to them about it. Whoever charges them, not so much.
I've not had luck with it.
I've never.
Okay. I don't have the power of the county to do it.
Okay, so we need to approve that, which is to tell you.
Well, they will, he just needs to know who the contact is, and then he said he will send the contract for signature, and we have it sent to your attention.
Send it to me, I'll send it to legal, have them take a look at it.
I can give Eric a call just to verify. I know Eric.
You think you twist his arm a little bit?
I don't know if I can do that, but I do.
Wait, tell him we'll give him a nice certificate or something like that. and
It's
help
sort
out.
of try.
Give them extra work, Sal.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, send that on, Mark, if you will, and let's get that. done. We need to move on this, don't we, Brett?
Yeah.
What exactly does that motion need to say? Because I really got a lot of stuff going on there.
Well, which one are you wanting to do first? You first need a motion for acceptance of Fager McGee as the contractor, subject to what was discussed here in the meeting as far as additional value engineering. Not including alternate bids 2, 3.
Right.
For certain. So,
With alternate bid number 1 and unit price A, accepted.
correct.
Mayor, did you get that? A motion? I will make that motion.
Tim Atkinson,
Yeah,
sorry. Jim Marlowe.
Yay.
Jim Racer.
Yeah,
I was getting ready to ask Commissioner Razor if you had anything. I thought we were good.
I mean, it's a big number, but it's also It's been said over and over again, and I'll say it again, we've got to do it. Other than resigning or redesigning back to the pole barn, I don't know that there would be any savings in delaying it, so.
Commissioner Rager, I will tell you that I quickly did a search. St. Clair County is looking at a $11 to $12 million animal control facility. And Tazewell County, which is up towards the Peoria area, is looking at a 3.75. So it's an area that has received a lot of attention here lately in a lot of counties throughout Southern Illinois as far as animal control. That's making a lot more of the media circuit on some issues that are going on. So I don't know what the push is, but it is seems to be an expense that the public is willing to take on.
And for us, we have the additional, that we have a lease that we may not get renewed.
Yeah.
So we may not have it 18 months or so left, so
And the main thing on
something we
that,
need to do.
to tee off of your point, we can't modify that. In any way, shape, or form.
It is what it
It
is.
is what it is.
No, I said yes, but yeah, I just think it's something we got to do.
I don't think any of us are going to be spending $3.5
No.
on anything. I mean, that is a lot of money, and I think at the very end of this, we've done our work on this. I think we've considered it.
As I've always said, over the last 50 years, animal welfare has become a top priority in a lot of different counties, municipalities, and laws have changed, and you have to abide by them. So,
Okay, so for the second thing, then, the Ameren, we need to approve, when do they need this? They need it
In 90 days.
in 90 days? Is that what that says?
Yeah.
All right, well, then let's approve this today. This is the charge to extend the residential electric project. And Mark, is there a reason why that's at residential?
You have two forms there. One form is look at the customer responsibility when some contract. That's tax levy.
Okay, we're gonna have natural gas up there. Okay. So this is going to cover both, the 24,500 will cover both,
This is one for electric.
only for
I've
electric.
not been told the cost of
well,
it.
so this is where I was going to talk to Eric about, find out, is this just electric?
This is just
Yes.
electric, yes.
Can we negotiate this?
Can we hold off on this vote?
Yeah, I'm okay with holding off on this, job. We need to-
It's not going to affect anything on the site,
It's not gonna hold us back from anything.
not for short term.
It's just.
Enough grade work.
Is all it is.
Once they start, once you start vertical construction, you're gonna need power out there.
Yeah, just, close to the end of construction so we can power everything up.
Sure.
That kind of thing.
Okay, conduits and all that stuff will be in place.
Yeah.
And so, okay. At the very least, we have a meeting in June, second Tuesday in June. We can approve it. That'd be okay?
Should be electric and gas though, too, right?
We will be electric gas, this is electric.
Okay. So, we'll work on that then. Anything else you need us to act on as far as animal control facility?
On the contracts drafted.
Thank you.
There's a meeting set up, we'll be hopefully soon with some ideas.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. I've done it 20 years, long time ago in a different life. I did a lot of work for figuring it out. Glad to have that project.
Thank you. Yeah, we're excited. I'm born and raised local too for Williamson County, so it's definitely exciting.
Yeah. Well, good.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity.
Appreciate it. All right, Mark. Thank you guys. Appreciate it. Have a good day. Moving on down in old business, we got the whatever, consulting service engagement letters, assistant engagement letter. We didn't get a circuit court engagement letter, at least in this latest building. The commissary audit, the countywide audit, and single audit engagement letter. And I still have some issues with the dates, and I think Brett has some issues with the dates also on this. Brett, you want to kind of give us a rundown on what your concerns are?
Sure. So the countywide audit concern of dates, similar to what I had mentioned before, there's some requirements to, on page 1, 2, 3, 4. On page 5, the first thing is that it indicates that we are on the countywide audit, single audit, on page 5, so it should be this page here, Jim. It indicates that we're supposed to submit the previous year's audit report by May 31st of 25. The concern I have with that is we have received the audit report, but we have got to write our rebuttal. May 31st is next Saturday. I know that the chairman is scheduled to be gone next week.
Next week.
So I don't know that the board will be able to get the rebuttal on file by that point in time. And then the next page has the January 31st of 25 date that we have to provide prior audit findings by that date, which that date has passed as well. So I don't know why those are still there. Jim, did you get a chance to talk to her?
Yes, I did, and I did relay that information to her.
Okay. And then the last issue that I had is on the second to last page. It indicates our fee for services will be at our standard hourly rates plus out-of-pocket expenses. There is no rate listed. In the other documents, she has rates listed. This one, she does not. I would feel more comfortable having the rate established as opposed to mid-cycle. There's a rate increase there, like there's nothing that holds that to the rate, I guess is what I'm trying to get to on that. So that's on the countywide audit report. On the, what is that the only one you were looking at right now?
The countywide commissary audit and the circuit clerk engagement.
So, yeah, I didn't get a revised circuit clerk. I didn't have any real issues with the circuit clerk, so I don't know if that's just intended that it's, there's no changes.
I just told her the same thing, that you didn't have an issue with. the
Yeah,
circuit clerk.
Yeah,
that's-
so I'm assuming that
That
one
was
is,
the message conveyed.
and then the commissary, my big question was whether or not the sheriff was having his own auditor conduct the commissary audit.
So he told me that he was.
Okay.
Right.
So then that one is not necessary with Ms. Meyer.
Now, does he have to let them know that there are sub auditors in and they have to report to the county auditor?
So they have to, the two auditors have to communicate.
Yeah.
Much like the PDC was required to have some conversation back and forth between Kemper, I think it was Kemper that did the PDC.
Yeah.
And Kim, so.
And we received the camera audit today.
Yeah.
So the PVC audit is. So that I would like to, just to keep working on the countywide audit and the circuit clerk audit, I'd like to approve those two today, contingent on the countywide audit for addressing the shortcomings on that engagement. What's your thoughts on that? You have any thought? Everybody have any-
No,
Okay, so I'll reach out to Ken. I'm gonna have Brett with me, and he and I will reach out to Ken, and we'll address all those concerns. And do you want to wait until after we have those in hand, or do we read that table? I'm gonna keep working. She's working on the audit now.
so
Does that work for you too, Matt?
Yeah, I think that's appropriate.
Okay, so then I make a motion that we accept the circuit clerk engagement letter for the audit in the circuit clerk's office as it's written, as the engagement letter we have as it's written. And the countywide audit,
Are we gonna do these individually or? all together? Because each one is, the only reason is the commissary audit doesn't need any changes on just or the other.
well, the sheriff is doing a commissary audit now.
Right. So I'm just saying, one each changes and one is okay,
No, you can approve the circuit clerk audit as written.
as written.
Okay.
All right.
And that's what I just said.
Yeah,
Okay.
And then we can approve the,
just do that motion and then I think what he's saying is then do a separate one for the other.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I make a motion that we approve the circuit clerk engagement letter for the circuit clerk audit as it is written. Is there a second?
I'll say.
Roll call, please.
Tim Eckison.
Yeah.
Jim Marlowe.
Yeah.
Jim Razor.
Okay. The second one would be the countywide audit and single audit engagement letter. And that will be contingent upon the rewording of that engagement letter to what we found acceptable in this meeting. The dates. Is there a second on that?
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Tim Eckison.
Yeah,
Jim Marlowe.
Yeah.
Jim Razor.
okay. The consulting services engagement letter. I'd like to find out from Kim if she has done any consulting, if we billed for it, if we haven't. I'd like to put that one on hold. The budget assistance engagement letter. I'd like to put that on hold also until we get these items approved. Anybody have anything coming in there? Okay, so we have the two audits for the circuit clerk engagement letter, the countywide audit and the single audit. Both been approved. That would be contingent. on-
Yeah, no.
Moving on down into new business. Gentlemen, I'd like you to consider an RFP for a new outside auditor. We've had the same auditor for a number of years. And I believe our current audit status right now, I think it's appropriate time to go outside and start looking for a new auditor. The past 2 months, that Ashley and I have been working on trying to find some outside auditors that would be interested in doing this. We have I think that it's a handful of auditors, plus we have other auditors that haven't contacted, maybe interested in this. So what I would like to do, I think you guys got a copy of the request for proposal. I asked Fred if he would put something together on this. Did you guys have an opportunity to take a look at it? Any obvious changes that you need to make, that you guys see? I think it is. I think, Brett, what do you think about this? I know you just put this together.
Yeah. I think so.
Actually, go ahead.
There are some highlighted areas that I have spoke with Ashley about via email. I shouldn't say I spoke. We've exchanged regarding the information that I need in some of those spots. So I do have that information. The only thing that is not included in that that needs some discussion is whether or not you want to inquire of these new auditing companies if they have any experience or interest in providing any budgetary consulting services as well. So it would mirror kind of what you guys have now as opposed to just auditing. If so, then I would need to add a little bit of wording to indicate that.
So actually, I'm going to ask you because you and I have been talking about this for some time. I think you did talk to a few of these auditing firms about budgeting. And that was something that they would be willing to have the budgeting part of their business,
They have, yeah, different departments.
divisions.
Yeah, I talked to, there's five, large regional companies that I've talked to. So obviously they have various departments, large staff, so they wouldn't be able to do it. I can, who they are if you want to know. But they would have different divisions, within, they can run the gamut. They have payroll consulting services, ERP consulting, whatever, or they have partners like in various industries to be able to put us with to get accomplish whatever we need to accomplish.
So I would like to include the budgeting as part of this. Like I said, Brett didn't know about budgeting until I mentioned it before the meeting. So I would like to include that in this RFP. If that's all right with you guys.
As mandatory or as optional? What's your preference?
Actually, my preference would be probably at least for the term mandatory. I think as we become more skilled at doing our budgeting in-house, and I'm pretty confident we can get that done. Once again, we can always, I think we can flip that on and off like a switch.
Is there a concern that making that mandatory would knock anyone out that we might be interested in?
Well, I'd have to ask Ashley on
It could. My recommendation would be to make it an option, just like you just were given with some of your building specs.
that. And I'm okay with it.
You can,
I just want, I want us to fully evaluate these
Right.
companies and whether or not we decide that's a need that we're gonna have to have.
So that's an alternate.
Yeah,
I would prefer the mandate.
mandate.
The only reason why I say it should be an alternate is that depending upon the size of the firm, they may say they have a separation of duties and they can delineate that across their departments, and others may say we don't, which would knock, ones out. If you want to deal with the five big ones I've talked with, that I know for a fact that they've got delineation of departments, that's fine. If you
I would say mandate, but by mandating, you still have the option. You don't necessarily have to sign the engagement.
For clarification, I think you're talking two different things. So let me see if I can figure out what everybody means. So I think you can mandate that they have to give you a price for auditing services. But that is a separate charge and distinct charge from the auditing. So for instance, if I have an auditing division and I put in an audit price, but then I contact ABC budgeting and I say, hey, will you give me a subcontractor price to do the budgeting for me? And they provide a price and I put that into my proposal. Does that meet your mandated requirement that they provide both?
Yes.
So
And once again, like I said, you don't have to use that service.
well, but I think that's why you put it as an alternate, so that you can check the box as we're not, just like we did here. If their price comes in and we're like, you know what, we don't like that, but then another company says, hey, we'll do the budgeting for this price, we can contact them and say, hey, will you do budgeting for us? I think
Yeah.
that gives you the best
Yeah, as long as
option.
you got the option.
I just think the mandated term is the one that we were struggling with.
Did that work for you, Jim?
What the alternate appeals to me, I don't want to eliminate what we may decide later is the best audit option, because I don't want anything to do with our budget.
And I don't want to be time cool. If the best auditing situation is not the best budget.
Right.
So I would do an alternate.
Got it?
Okay, so Brett will work up something and get it to us, and then when we have that, we'll send it out. Good? Okay. Good?
Yeah, I think you guys are gonna have to determine the timeline and get back to Red. 'Cause I didn't
respond to that. That's, do you want to be a point person for either questions? Because everybody I talked to said once they receive the RFP, they're going to almost immediately send us a list of questions for us to answer. So who's going to be the point person on that?
I think the question should come for the entire,
But who?
we can appoint someone to respond, but questions need to come for the entire.
I think,
In the RFP, it says direct your questions to, and then there's an email address for that.
correct. Do you want it to be Ashley? Do you want it to be
No, I think
Stephanie? Do you want it to, who do you want the single email address for distribution to go to?
you definitely adjourn.
I think it has to be, me. Is that all right with you, Mark? Okay, and I will, as soon as I get those things, I'll send them to everybody, so everybody has to take a look at them. Okay, so does anybody have anything else on the audit situation? I do not. All right, Southern Business contract, that is for the postage machine, right, Jim?
It is the one on this floor.
And we're confident this time, for this one.
We are, it is replacing one that comes from Southern Business.
And I believe the one that we did replace in the last meeting, although it wasn't this one, it needed to be replaced.
It is well,
Its time is up.
and it's already been done.
So when it's done, complete. What's our total lease agreement for this one?
$212.62 a month, 60 months, total of $12,757 over the 60 months.
Would you like to make a motion on that?
Move to approve the product lease agreement with Southern Business Machines. $212.62 a month for 60 months for postage machine.
I second it.
Okay, roll call please.
Tim Atkinson.
Yeah.
Jim Marlowe.
Yeah.
Jim Razor.
Good oak. Moving on down, do we have any public comment today? I have nothing from highway or any other committees or anybody else. I do not have a board appointment.
The only update that I would have would be, we had the countywide cleanup day. Well, it was a lower turnout than the year prior, probably due to the fact of a number of tornado, everything, all the graduations, pushed to Saturday instead of Friday evening. So we still have, from what I understand, about 65 to 70 vehicles show up. And, but I tell you what, they collected like 7 So, which was good. And it was a lot of those tires, and I know probably kind of ditches. During the cleanup day, I was approached by Gary Pearson, and I believe I did put Gary in touch with Brian concerning they offered dumpsters to help out with the cleanup process. So I told Gary, Gary, Brian knows more about this, is better suited for this, so I put the two in touch with him. And speaking with Brian, I'll let you take it over from here.
Yes, sir.
That might come at a little bit later time.
You ready for?
Let's go ahead and talk, yes, go ahead.
Okay, so, to address that item specifically, I talked to Mr. Pearson, and, what we had talked about was just randomly placing the dumpsters at this point. We would not be able to monitor or control what is being put in those dumpsters, so if there's like vegetative stuff that's put in them, and it would be required, just like you guys know from the cleanup days, that, white goods or the appliances have to go in this one and building materials have to go in this one. So what we had talked about, and I spoke with George, what we're gonna do is George is focusing on the vegetative debris at this time. And then we're gonna go ahead and let the property owners go through their insurance process and take care of what they can. And then once they, couple months from now, once they've gone through all that process, whatever debris is left, we assume the county highway department is going to address. We'll request those dumpsters. We have a staging site for them. We'll request those dumpsters, and then the county highway will go in and retract those items and place those in the dumpsters so that we can control where the stuff is being placed.
And I agree, I think that's what the
So
situation.
we do have Mr. Pearson's point of contact and George's, that's part of our disaster management plan that we've written. So that is the intent for that donation at this time.
That's all.
Okay. I have, before we go into some, a couple other things, I've got a travel reimbursement. On Monday, I was in Springfield at a UCCI convention or meeting. Abraham Lincoln went down to Springfield. This is just for mileage. It's 372 miles from our trip. And it was $260.40. Like I said, that was just for training. Training session. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make that
Questions?
motion.
Any questions? Any questions on that?
I made that motion. Second.
Okay, roll call please.
Tim Matheson,
Stay.
Jim Marlowe,
Yeah.
Jim Razor.
Thank you, Jim. Okay. Ashley, do you have any ARPA fund or ARPA to pay for today?
I do. First one is Lakeside Water District, pay estimate number 5 to follow up construction, total amount $209,318.91, and a Hunter Schifrin invoice for various engineering inspection services, $14,091.80. Total request, $223,410.79.
How close are they actually?
A long way, I think he's half, maybe about 60% million plus we gave him, so. Well, I had 2 large payouts, but follow the rest of them, all been pretty small.
Okay. What else you got?
Southern Illinois Coalition for the Homeless, reimbursement of their expenses for April for their homeless outreach, housing stabilization, their operational and administrative expenses associated with those things, $1,764.57.
That's it. Okay, thank you, Ashley. All right, I have two last things I'd like to talk about. One is the county contractor license, and I'm sure that's not what it's listed as. What is it listed as? Or-
Oh, the,
Oh, I think I'm spot,
you
I'm
did,
sorry.
the merchant, it's the transient license.
Okay.
It's a peddler's license.
Yes,
That's a
peddler's
peddler's license. And the reason I'd like to talk about this, guys, is that, I don't know if you have had any questions or from the public about this or not. We have a lot of homes. We have a lot of contractors that we needed to complete that work down there. And at the very least, some people in the community have asked if we could maybe register these contractors, the people that are coming in to do this work, something where they would have to come into the county, provide a license or some kind of proof that they're actually in business, insurance requirements that we need to do. And we can't act on this today, but I'd like to let Brett start working on the ordinance on this. And just so you know, the biggest reason I think we always hesitate when something like this comes up is how we would enforce it. So right before the meeting, I was on the phone with the state's attorney Hampson and asked him if he thought we could get enforcement on something like this. He said, absolutely. He said the sheriff would absolutely enforce an ordinance and make sure that we have contractors that are licensed, that are eligible to be doing this work. Yes.
So when that is a provision, then we can include that as part of our post-disaster messaging.
Yeah.
that says that, you were affected and please make sure that for your protection, that your contractor is licensed and accredited through the county, as a message from us, from county government saying just, for your protection, and we can include that as part of our post-disaster message.
I think we were gonna have, in just a minute, we were gonna have maybe a discussion on what the county needs to be doing as far
Yes,
as your office, our office, and Ashland's office and the assessment situation. And I think we need to probably put all those things together and put them on the county website so people have one place they can go to and talk about that.
So how does this work? Is this, I know we've done this one damage. They have to be registered, is that what it is, in order? It's just as a homeowner still have the option of choosing who he wants.
so currently I am unaware of what the peddler's license is. But I know that in other areas and other regions, as I was going through my check sheet, one of the things that was on my checklist is to verify whether or not incoming contractors had to be vetted through it's usually through a municipality, and that was why the message to you said, I know we're not a municipality, but it was just something I wanted the board to be aware of, that's a good protection for our residents. Also, the idea of that those companies are bonded typically, so that, if the work is not done or left. I know horror stories from other places have been where people come in, do enough work to get their first draw and then take off. And then the homeowner's left with because those are transient companies that just target regions based on disasters. So that the ordinance or the provision that you would put in place would just be so that we have some kind of standardized procedure for all of these people who are doing work within that disaster area or even within the county as a whole is licensed and bonded and for the protection of the residents.
Well, that was my question, because what if the average homeowner who doesn't live over there in that area, affected area, lives on the opposite end in the county, and he wants a tree removed out of his yard, and he selects whoever, company XYZ.
So, Mr. Barkeep, correct me if I'm wrong, but can we narrow the ordinance to be areas specified within a disaster declaration?
I mean, you have to really define that area.
Isn't
Well-
this just for people who are going door to door trying to?
The peddler's license
Yeah.
would be, this would be something probably a little different.
So I don't know. What I believed the goal of this was to make sure that there wasn't a fly-by-night roofing company that came through, took somebody's money and never put the roof on their house. I don't know why you would want to limit that just to tornado area people. I mean,
Well,
if the
that's-
county is going to have an ordinance that says roofers need to get a license or a permit, to operate in the county, then I don't think it's, well, if you operate on Fifth Street, you have to have one, but if you operate on Sixth, you don't. The goal isn't money, the goal is protection of citizens. Generally speaking, well, not generally speaking, it is required that if a municipality has an ordinance, there's controls over top of the county. So you're trying to protect the citizens that are outside of corporate limits and inside the county limits. So I don't know that whether they're on the north side and somebody's targeting them, or whether they're on the south side, I don't know that you want to differentiate.
But you understand my question. If Mr. Homeowner has a tree he needs removed, he's not in the storm area, and he uses this company that's not registered, okay, but that's who he wants. Okay, is there gonna be consequences, or if it was found out, or what?
Well, again, I think the question becomes, what businesses are you attempting to regulate? I mean, that's what you guys have to narrow it to.
Yeah, no, I understand the need for something like this. I'm just trying to figure out, if somebody says, I still want this guy here to cut the tree down.
Well, again, I don't think I think the homeowner has their choice.
That's what I mean.
It's just the same as the contractor has the choice whether to get a permit or not get a permit. And we've not even discussed whether or not there's gonna be a fee for it. It's more of just a record keeping to try in some form to protect the citizen that doesn't know to ask for, are they bonded? Do they have insurance? Now, they come in and get their permit today and cancel their insurance tomorrow. So it's not a fail-safe, but it's an effort by the board, is how I'm taking it, to try to be proactive, to make sure that some people don't get taken advantage. But we can draft it however you want to do it.
I think that's right. And once again, I think the enforcement is going to have to come from the consumer also. I mean, they're going to have to ask the contractor if they got the county license, the county permit, or whatever you want to call it. I don't know about bonding. I mean, that adds another layer of control and also workers.
But then, I mean, what do you want
And then we also have licensing issues. So typically it's plumbing contractors and roofing contractors that are licensed at the state.
electrical's not,
Electrical is not, neither are
general contractor?
general contractors or HVAC. None of them have licenses, other than maybe refrigeration.
But then what do you do for the fee? Who collects the fee? What are you gonna use the fee for?
Who's gonna do the vetting?
that-
What if they
those are
walk
all,
in, if someone walks in with false documents?
Yeah.
We need someone that's capable of determining their false documents.
well, and then that takes it to, you do determine it after the fact. And the state's attorney's office decides that they're going to prosecute. They're gonna be limited on statutorily how much they can actually fine the person. So that's not necessarily gonna get somebody's $50,000 back. I mean, there's a lot of things, which is probably why the county has been through the May 8th storm and ice storms, and everything else, and hasn't done anything, is because it is very difficult to set up that system when you're not planning on, having it impact all of the different businesses throughout the county. And you're just trying to target a specific problem area.
Well, because you do what you do. And it's not gonna be a perfect. I mean, you pass the ordinance, there's gonna be loopholes here, there, everywhere that we can.
I mean, I think Brian could unofficially, tell people that they want to drop off business cards and show proof of insurance, that you can make a recommendation on the website of these are people that we've looked at. But I still would put a disclaimer that says you're not guaranteeing this.
Our messaging so far has been to verify your contractors, make sure you have a contract, a binding that's been our messaging so far. And we were given guidance from the Illinois Department of Insurance, and that's the guidance that we're using to push messaging.
I just think that you just need to get the word out. Once we get this draft, just need to get the word out.
We do have an ordinance. You guys already have, an ordinance, and we did use it during the May storm and set up and collect data. It just needs to do it. It's very old ordinance.
So we want to have Brett and Ted look at this. You guys good with that? And bring something back to this. Have that discussion later. Sound good, Brett?
Sound good?
Like I said, Ted was enthusiastically wanting to enforce this. He agrees that we need to do what we can to help protect our citizens. Okay. I have a disaster declaration extension. I signed, Brian brought me the declaration on Sunday, and I signed it and emailed it off to the state.
I did, sir.
Right.
Mr. Barkley, is there any corrections that you wish to have made on that? Okay.
Yeah, so the,
That was for 7 days, right? The
Yeah,
first
so
was for 7 days.
this particular declaration, sir, this one adds, we put this date in post, meaning that our original declaration was effective on the 16th. That's set to expire on the 23rd, right?
Yes.
So I post dated this and then added this statement by saying by board action on the 22nd day of May 2025, this declaration is extended to a period of 30 days and shall expire on the 22nd day of June 2025, unless extension will renew with the consent. So this will take us 30 days into the future where you guys can, I will give you an update prior to that time. We will determine whether or not we need to go out another 30 days. So this will take us through the 22nd day of June.
Okay, the issue I have is that this is obviously not on the agenda for today.
so under 5 ILCS 120/2.02, the statute specifically indicates that you're not precluded from considering items not set forth in the agenda. So long as the issue is a matter that was not foreseen in an avoidance of posting the agenda. So, you guys can vote on this, as an item. It's just not supposed to be the norm. So,
Well, yeah, and I'd like to get this voted on. Like I said, I'll be out of town next week. Not only that, it expires tomorrow. So I would like to us to vote on this. And I'm going to emphasize that it was my fault. I just flat forgot about it coming up. And the agenda was out, and I didn't think about it until I called Brian today about some other things. And so I want to make it known, this is not something that we want to do. It's just in this particular instance, we need to do it. So that being said, I will make a motion that we extend disaster declaration today up until what day? What's
June
left?
22nd.
Until June 22nd. There's a second? Okay, roll call vote.
Tim Magnuson.
Yeah.
Jim Harlow.
Yeah.
Jim Razer.
I respectfully request the board a few minutes to make a typographical error correction.
it's been approved, so you can get it to them.
You can
For
just-
signature, that's
Okay, so I'll run upstairs and make the change and bring it back down before you guys leave the building, get it signed and get it filed today and submitted to our.
That would be perfect. Can you stay on top of what when the governor signs our original declaration?
He doesn't have to sign it, he just has to accept
He
it.
has to accept it.
Yeah.
But we don't know if that's been done yet.
We do not. What we are waiting, so what we are working on at this point is we believe that we are eligible for SBA, which is a Small Business Administration. I have began the process through the Department of Recovery with IEMA to make the application for SBA. SBA will open up low interest loans to residents of Williamson County. That requires the governor's approval and signature for that to go forward. So it may all be part of that. Your 30-day extension with the original declaration and this SBA application may all go through at the same time.
And that is, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm probably wrong. That is for people who are uninsured,
Uninsured or underinsured.
underinsured and underinsured. Mr. Wilcox, I'd like you to, if you take anything away from today's meeting, this is something that we really and truly need the folks of Williamson County to know. We need to know if they're underinsured, if they have no insurance, if they're underinsured, because I think we have a threshold on this.
We
We
do.
have to have so many underinsured or uninsured residents to apply for this.
Mr. Wilcox and I have been in communication and that is part of our.
Yeah, we actually talked yesterday. That's actually a separate standalone story about that. So
Perfect.
And I'm meeting with Tom, or WJBF?
Tom Miller,
Tom Miller. I will be on his radio show in the morning, and that will be the focus of the message. And
Did, Shelley Pyle reach out to you?
She has.
From Crosswalk?
I have spoken to her. She's at the mark right now. She's at the multi-agency resource center right now. Yes, and we are connecting. So I've got an update, if you guys are okay with.
Yeah, go ahead, you're here.
Okay. The first thing that I'm gonna share with you, this is a screenshot of the dashboard that I sent you guys a link to. Kind of came at you with little, information because at the time I had little information about this. So basically what you're seeing in front of you is the, Illinois Emergency Management has created a single point of reporting for disasters. They used it and they beta tested it during the flooding, and we are going to be the first one to roll it out large scale for a disaster. So what you are seeing in front of you is you're seeing what's called a self-assessment survey. What a self-assessment survey means is that the residents are able to go into a QR code or to a provided link on either their smartphone or computer, and they answer questions that FEMA needs to receive guidance for us to request the SBA or to request PA if we meet those thresholds, so forth and so on. Typically, what had been done in the past is the local authority having jurisdiction would collect that data, submit it to IEMA in whatever form that they collected it, which was typically a spreadsheet very similar to this. And then IEMA would then send a recovery group in, and then they would duplicate the effort. So what I chose to do in this event is not to do the duplications of efforts. So what we did is we sent out our initial damage assessment surveyors with a single piece of paper that simply collected their name, their address, and a contact number, and then our DA's assessment of what their property was in terms of whether or not it was destroyed, major, minor, affected, or inaccessible. We did not ask any of those very obtrusive questions that are on that survey, which I feel like when you answer that alone, you're not having some stranger say, hey, do you think you're fully insured? Do you feel like you have enough to cover your contents? I'm standing in my debris and somebody that I don't know is asking me some very, very intrusive questions. So I feel like this is a much better way for us to get that data back. And then I also have the raw numbers based on what my staff felt when they observed those properties. So as you look, we are just about 7 days into this event, and my numbers are 21 destroyed, 28 major, 17 minor, and 6 affected. If you look, the numbers of the self-reporting are not far off. So I feel like we're getting back the numbers and we're getting a very good response from this survey. We've done a couple of things to try to continue to encourage residents to fill out the survey. Last night, my son and I canvassed the neighborhoods. We went to every affected home with a copy of the advertisement for the Red Cross's Multi-Agency Resource Center today, a copy of my business card, and again, the survey QR code and link. And we've asked everyone we could find, we say, can you take a moment when you get a chance to fill out the survey? It's very important for us to bring aid and dollars back into Williamson County. I'm sure I missed something, but we tried every home that we could find that had damage. We either left it under a windshield wiper or stapled it to the wall if there wasn't anything left. But I mean, I feel like we've targeted every single home. Everyone we talked to, I left my business card and I said, if you have unmet needs, please feel free to reach out. So this is the first component to what we're doing to get that data back so that we can make sure we maximize not only the impact of the event, but also so that we can apply for any aid that becomes available. Secondly, we have formed our long-term recovery group. Our long-term recovery group, Mr. Razor joined us yesterday. We have a group of NGOs or non-governmental organizations who have come together and formed a committee for the sole purpose of matching unmet needs with resources, whether they're by donation, whether that's what their agency does, like the Crosswalk Community Action Group. So this survey, it's kind of hard to see, but this survey also allows us to target if they self-report that they have unmet needs. We have already been through this list and we have already connected those folks that have self-reported those unmet needs. We are starting to get those reports in. I anticipate a lot more as we move through the process. I just got one a few minutes ago that was brought upstairs that I've already connected with our long-term recovery group, and we're going to try to make some provisions for some temporary housing for a husband and wife who is dislocated. They're currently living in the car. We were unaware. We're going to fix that. Okay. But our long-term recovery group, they are tasked solely with connecting those unmet needs with those agencies that said, we want to donate, we want to give, what can we do? A lot of those places we've said, okay, relax. We're going to wait until those requests start to come in. Okay. Once those requests starts to come in, then we are going to very strategically place those unmet needs with those donors who are willing to meet those needs. Any questions on this survey? So you guys do have the link. If you need me to send it to you again, I will be more than happy to do so, but you can click on that link. It does not require a login and you can see where we're at any given time. All of these data sets are live. So if you were to click on this particular, there's like a little button in the upper right-hand corner, it would give you the spreadsheet that shows where those minor impacted, who those people are and where their addresses are. And then we can use this data also to merge with Josh downstairs so that we can make sure that all of the affected properties are getting those certificates that they need for destroyed properties because it changes their taxations. So we will, once we get this data collected, I will send that to Josh and we'll make that connection. As far as debris management is concerned, currently we are working with the County Highway Department and we are addressing all the vegetative needs. George has his folks working down there relentlessly. He did send me he sent me a message today that said that we needed to change some of the messaging because he feels like people are starting to pull debris out of their woods to the road line, and we're not ready for that. We want to get the stuff out of people's yards first so that, we can get, egress points and stuff so that the neighborhood looks like a neighborhood and not so much like a war zone. And then when we can get that debris, then we'll talk about getting stuff moved out of your woods and what we can do with it from
You
there.
don't think people are concerned that once we clean out the first time, not coming back?
Sir, I can't answer that. I don't know what their perceptions are at this
Because
point.
we're going to be there until that's cleaned up,
That's the message I'm delivering.
regardless of how many trips that are being spent.
Couple of things that I would like to share with the board since I have your attention. I'm going to be honest with you, I'm amazed at the community's response. Not only unaffiliated volunteers, but local restaurants, churches, civic groups. I've had emails and phone calls from people as far away as New York. I had a mother of a Cub Scout troop in New York that said, my boys heard about your event and they want to donate. What can we do? And I connected them with our long-term recovery group, and she asked, our chair asked for some gift cards, and they said the boys are going to sell baked goods this weekend, and whatever money they raise, they will send back in gift cards. So the community response to this is huge. We have more stuff and more equipment. Well, I should say equipment. We have more donated goods right now than we have places for them to go. We will be warehousing some of that so that as those needs arise on a later date, we'll be able to make those matches. But we're trying to manage our donations as much as possible so we don't end with a giant pile of stuff that we have nothing, that we can't do anything with at the end of the disaster. So we are working very hard to try to manage the donations because sometimes the donations end up being the disaster within. So we are using our partners, the American Red Cross, for our sheltering and our mass feeding needs. We feed the volunteers and those affected families who are out and about working. We feed them twice a day. We feed them at lunch. We feed them at dinner. The Red Cross will discontinue their feeding this weekend unless we hear a need from the community. But we're starting to see fewer and fewer people out working in their yards, and it's now more contractors with large equipment. and less community volunteers. And it's to the point now where it takes professionals to take care of the work. So we're starting to scale back. We will close our volunteer reception center tomorrow. We've had 6 volunteers today, down from 148 average over the weekend. And mainly that's because we're running out of things for them to do, because we're moving into the professional realm. Everything that needed to be packed is packed. Everything that's needed to be moved is moved, and all the trees that could be cut by laypersons are cut, right? So we will be discontinuing our volunteer reception center tomorrow. That will be our last day. And then we will continue our work because we've transitioned from the response to the recovery piece at this point. So now we are going to work with that long-term recovery group to get those needs coming. I believe that we're going to see probably a 20 to 30 day reprieve as people work through their insurance process to figure out what their needs are, because it's not until they get their quotes back on the build back costs or until they get their checks for their belongings that they'll find that they either are uninsured or underinsured for those items. And that's where we're going to try to take those to the long-term recovery group and see what we can do to meet their needs. So just, I was tasked with making sure that those people are supported until the very end, sir, and that's exactly what we're prepared to do.
Anything else this board needs to do for you?
No, not at this point. I want to thank Commissioner Razor for being active in the process. I knew you were out of town last week. Commissioner Razor happened to be available. I came down to the second floor and he just happened to be available. So I said, hey, can you pop in? He came into our department head meeting on, what's today, Thursday?
It's Monday.
It was Monday.
Yep.
Commissioner Razor came into the department head meeting. I kind of got the lay of the land. We had Sheriff Diedrich, had ISP, myself, we had George, we had the American Red Cross, all the players who had a response piece over the weekend we brought in, and we talked about where have we been, where are we now, and where are we going. And it was a good opportunity for us to get together and ascertain how we're doing so that I can set objectives moving from, I was running 12-hour objectives at that point. I moved to 24-hour now. I'm going to extend my time out maybe 48 hours or my objectives until I go week-long objectives. So I'm trying to keep you guys in the loop on those as much as possible.
We
So
appreciate it.
I have no direct needs right now. I will be honest with you. Brandon Hendricks, our Region 11 coordinator, is calling me every day because the state is putting pressure on him. Why are they not asking for help? Where are their requests? Well, I haven't had any. We've had such a community response. We've had so many volunteers. Other than, funding and reimbursement for costs and overtime and, SBA or PA or whatever, we've managed. I mean, we've had everything. I mean, Sheriff Diedrich said he had sheriffs on the phone with him within moments of this thing hitting. George Shepard has reported that, we've got Johnson County, Jackson County, Saline County, Franklin County. They've all their engineers have reached out. We've got their trucks running in rotations with our trucks getting deliveries. I have all of my EMA partners. Franklin's here, Saline's here, Johnson's here, Jackson's here. They're all here in rotations, working, assisting my agency and moving our objectives forward. It has been a true Southern Illinois response, and I'm proud to say that we are a resilient bunch. I really do.
All right, thank you, Brent. Anybody have any questions for us? Thank you. Yeah,
And we had no deaths and 7 injuries.
that is still amazing.
And the most significant injury was a laceration and a dislocated shoulder.
Thank you for the report. That was very thorough. Thank you. Continue on. As soon as this board needs to do something, let us know.
I was.
And does anybody have anything that we need to do? I mean, we're covering pretty much everything. Anything not helping?
And Brian and I have talked about this, and it's good to hear the insurance of finding that threshold number is very important to a whole lot of people down there, because I do think I've talked to numerous insurance agents, and I keep hearing that, well, these people are all 100% replacement covered. But until they actually get back into that construction phase and see where they are versus what their settlement was, we don't know if they're underinsured. So it's going to be a process and we need to stay diligent on this. I don't think we're going to solve it the next week or two. This may be 2 months from now that we find those numbers, but we need to get the word out. Anyone that's uninsured or underinsured to the threshold that his office needs to know.
And that kind of leads into the very last thing. I know this has been a long meeting. I appreciate everybody's patience. Ashley was in my office earlier today. We were talking about maybe putting something on the county website. That was you, right? I've had a lot of people in my office today. I think it was you about the things like the uninsured part of this. And then the reassessments, making sure that the assessments were done. That was, what were those B-tax forms? Actually, you have them.
327 and 245, but I mean, I think they have different parameters and both of them require the governor's acknowledgement of disaster.
We need the governor to sign our disaster.
Is my understanding, when I'm talking about Mark Armstrong.
So what I can tell you at this point is I'm working with Jared Runyon, who's our Region 11
There's John, the
disaster recovery specialist. And I'm getting the numbers together for the SBA application right now. And I believe that's part of the SBA application. What I did not know until this morning was if our SBA application is approved, the Small Business Administration will send field agents to the area and they will canvass the neighborhoods and make those connections. It will not be our staff's responsibility to reach out and make those connections. The SBA will do that.
okay. The reassessments, Josh, for these folks that are going to rebuild, they're going to need some work from your office, right? Some work from your office. You guys are going to need to do reassessments. Is that?
Yeah, so we can adjust their assessment up to the point of the tornado. And then it'll get adjusted, and then when they rebuild, they'll get another exemption. That'll take the difference off of the new value from the old value. So they'll get that amount off of the difference.
Is there a time frame? Do we have a deadline on this?
I think they have 90 days to file a disaster report in our office, which, you know, that's,
The disaster
I get it.
report needs to happen now.
the statute says within 90 days. So
Was there something else that can't the county do by resolution?
I'm sure they can.
If we can.
I mean, if it takes them more than 90 days, I'm not gonna be a total stickler on it.
Josh, can you email me the language that I need to message the community with about getting that disaster exemption filed? And I will start hammering that message social. And I have a geo fence set up in our mass notification system that according to my, my map, I'm hitting 105 phones. So I will use that to target, because it's specific to that tornado area. So I will target that message. So if you could email me that exactly how you wanted to read, I will rewrite this. Okay.
We've got to hit that. And if any of that information, if it can be put on the county website, on the county Facebook page, we need to get that out.
Okay.
So if you guys can work with Stephanie to get it on, or Amanda, to get that information on the Facebook page or on the county website, we need to do that. We don't want to miss, if somebody has a benefit that we can get to them, we need to make sure they get it.
Well, one thing I think Josh and I talked about, he knows this, but we need to find a way to educate people that the taxes are paid in arrears, so.
That was my next point.
This tornado happened in 25, so the full tax bill and no exemptions are going to apply for this coming.
So any messaging, send me the email of language you wanted, how you wanted to read, and I will rebroadcast.
Well, I'll go with Josh and I together, we'll try to figure out something.
That's a big deal, because some folks may, because this is a complicated message, some folks may not understand completely. The next tax bill is for the previous year. Right, so the home was standing all through 24, And it's been, and then the tax rate, the assessment rate won't happen until the 25 assessment.
Something that I failed to mention, and you had brought it up earlier, sir, was Ashley and I have already been in conversation based on our pre-planning that Ashley has opened up a trust account that we will charge all of the contractual items towards. So far I have a transportation charge. I have fuel charges for our light towers that have been down there. I ordered porta potties. I have a few contracts that I've executed once the EOP was open. And once those invoices come in, Ashley has already established that disaster trust. So we will charge those invoices against that disaster trust. But that was the way that we had worked that out.
We'll just have to figure out where that money's going from. So either it's gonna.
Well, some of that's going to be
contingency
reimbursed.
or-
Once the disaster.
If it's approved, yes.
If it gets approved by the government, some of those costs will be reimbursed. That may fall into that. I know that we've had massive amounts of overtime from different departments, so there's hopefully we'll get those.
I'm going to tell you, my contracts are going to be under $1,000 so far. That's what I'm anticipating at this point. I've not executed anything in excess of that.
Have we paid anybody yet?
No.
We just have to.
So get that to us. I would assume right now that would come out of a contingent fund.
Well, once Brian gets them to me, we'll get the claims put together from.
Okay, I'm gonna ask one more time. Anything this board, we do, is there anything that we need, anything this board needs to do for anything disaster related?
I don't believe so. I think everything was already, I mean, we're working through things that we had already pre-planned. So everything was, so far, unless I'm missing something, and I have told everybody that I have encountered that I don't know what I don't know. And I am not offended if somebody says to me, have you considered this? So I'm very pleased to report that so far, everything that we have encountered were things that we had already prepared for. So again, that was a conversation. This particular thing was a conversation I had already had with you and with Ashley. So, you know, part of my emergency operations plan rewrite for 26 was what we are doing right now. So all of those things were, you know, already provisions in place that we had already considered.
All right, Mike, thank you.
So only for me, and if we receive a call or anything, do you want us to update you guys on questions that we think are out of the norm? Or, you know, obviously Josh and I, you know, offices are getting calls regarding taxes, assessment, that type of thing. I mean, anything else that's disaster related, listening to Brian, but I mean, at what point in time are we supposed to engage the three of you?
Gentlemen, I would think that if they've got information that they think we need to know, we're going to know it as soon as possible.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right, so actually, well, I'll trust your judgment on that. I mean, if there's something that pops up that you need to tell us, and that goes for Josh and for Brian too. I mean, you know where we're at. I mean, if there's something that you need us to deal with, or you need to tell us, or get input on, I mean, don't hesitate.
Well, I mean, the three of us will be able to work fine and be able to walk through a lot of it together, because if he's giving Josh information on homes to identify, and, you know, I'm working, if I get anybody that comes and just ask for a bill, I'm gonna get that to him too, and vice versa, so we'll be able to, I mean, keep that, but if, I didn't know, at which one time you want some kind of weekly update from all of us, one of us.
We'll take updates anytime you feel like you want to give it to us, we'll take it. I think that's probably the way to go there. And if we don't have a meeting scheduled, we can do it individually. Okay? Anything else on this subject? Does anybody have anything else for this meeting? Yeah, we have a employment issue that we need to discuss. This is a labor contract issue. We need- What's that?
We don't need to go into the meeting.
Okay.
We don't have to have a meeting for collective bargaining.
Okay, so, does anybody have anything else for this meeting? Hearing nothing, is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Roll call, please.
Tim Matheson.
Yeah.
Jim Marlowe.
Yeah.
Jim Reed.
Yeah.
will you all be available in 15 minutes for me to go make this? and
Yeah,
be right back?
we got extension stuff to do.
I'll come as soon as I get this. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I got it.
Thank you, everybody.